Hey there, boys and girls. We've recently learned how to divide and represent our remainders using decimals. Well, today we're going to work on checking our answers. There is a very nice way for us to make sure that we still did our problem correctly. So let's think back to many discussions we've had. And remember, we use inverse operations to check our answers in math. So we do the opposite to check to make sure that we did the problem correctly. So to check the answer of our division problems, and remember, answers to division problems are called quotients. So to check our quotient, we will use multiplication. We will use the inverse operation of division, which is multiplication. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the quotient, or the answer, by the divisor, the number we were dividing by. Now, when we had remainders, when we said, if our answer was, let's say, 2 remainder 3, we'd multiply the 2 by the divisor, and then we would add the remainder. So what happens when my remainder is a decimal? You do not add your remainder the way that we have in the past. What you do is you are just going to multiply the whole number. You're going to multiply, including the decimal, you're going to multiply that whole quotient by the divisor. So you still multiply. You're still going to multiply. The product, or the answer to the multiplication problem after you've done it, needs to have the same number. This is super important. The same number of decimal digits as your quotient. And I'll explain that in our first example. So let's take a look. So I've got 485 divided by 2. Let's go ahead and solve that first. We're going to go decimal route. Okay, so 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 8 4 times. It's an 8. Minus 8 is 0, bring down the 5. 2 goes into 5 twice. I subtract 4. I have 1 left over. Now we're going decimal route, so I'm going to go ahead and tack on a decimal and a 0 and bring it on down. 2 goes into 10. Bring my decimal straight up as well. 2 goes into 10 5 times. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty confident that this is the right answer, 242 and 5/10. Now let's check our work to make sure we are indeed correct. So I'm going to take my quotient, 242.5 and 5/10, and I'm going to multiply that by 2. Now you do not have to line your numbers up when you're multiplying, okay? We're going to go ahead and ignore the decimal. We're just going to multiply normally. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. We have 1 decimal place here, so I'll have 1 decimal place here. 485, which is what I originally started with, so I know I am correct. Let's do another example where maybe this one we might have 2 decimal places, so let's see what that would look like. 393 divided by 4. You use a 0 placeholder because 4 does not go into 3 any whole times. 4 goes into 39 9 times. I subtract 36. 3 left over, bring down the 3. 4 goes into 33, let's see, 8 times. I subtract 32. I have 1 left over. Let's go ahead and bring down a 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. I subtract 8. I have 2 left over. Let's bring down another 0. 4 goes into 25 times. I subtract 20. My remainder is 0, so I'm done. Except I also need to bring up my decimal. Super important. Bring that decimal straight up. So I'm fairly confident that my answer should be 98 and 25 hundredths. I don't want to just be fairly confident. I want to be totally confident. So I'm going to go ahead and check my work. I'm going to multiply my quotient by my divisor. So I'm going to do 98 and 25 hundredths times 4. I'm going to go ahead and multiply normally, and then I'll take care of my decimal at the end. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 2 is, let's see, 8 plus 2 is 10. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. 4 times 9 is 36, plus 3 is 39. I have 2 decimal places. I'll have 2 decimal places there. 393. We nailed it. Let's take a look at a real world example where we care about, decimal remainders, and we'll check our answer as well to make sure we did it correctly. Jamal's taking a road trip. He plans to travel a total of 350 miles over the course of 8 days. If he plans on driving an equal amount each day, so if he plans on driving an equal amount each day, how far will he travel each day? So we're going to go ahead and take our distance and split it up equally over the 8 days. So we're going to do 350 divided by 8. Again, these are some of our keywords. Equal amount, splitting it up over each day. Those are definitely division words. Let's see. 8 goes into 3 0 times, but 8 goes into 35 4 times. I subtract 32. 8 goes into 30. Let's see. 3 times. I subtract 24. I have 6 left over. I'm going to go ahead and annex a decimal and a 0. 8 goes into 67 times. I subtract 56. I get 4 is my difference. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 45 times. I subtract 40, 0, which means I'm done dividing, but let's bring our decimal straight up. So what I'm concluding is that it's going to be 43 and 75 hundredths of a mile each day. But let's check our work. Let's go ahead and check and make sure that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I'm driving 43.75 miles for 8 days. I'm going to go ahead and multiply and make sure that's correct. I'm going to multiply normally. Carry the 4, 56 plus 4 is 60, carry the 6, 8 times 3 is 24, plus 6 is 24 plus 6 is 30, and then 32 plus 3 is 35. Let's see, I've got 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places. I'm back to 350, which I started with, so I know I am correct.